Dave, I need music or something as we start these shows, right? Because they start with this awesome intro and then there's just me. There's no music.
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to continue to improve. We're going to have to add some special effects, maybe some fireworks going off.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. If I can get some music, get some dancing, we could really turn this into something spectacular when we first start to bring everybody on.
That'd be awesome.
Well, thank you, Dave, for being here again, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It's another Wednesday. That means we are here live talking about retirement. And I did tease before the show, Dave, some of the questions we had out there because I think we've got some real good questions that came in this past week.
I'm very excited. Always fun to be back. This has been a crazy week for me. I feel like a truck driver. I need to be honking the horn on here. Just been on the road so much over the last little while. It's good to be back and be in my house and be with you and answering questions.
Yeah, any place you went that you actually really had a good time at? Is there one? Because I know you've been all over the country driving here.
Yeah, all of them have been great. In fact, it was sad. I was probably within 15 minutes of Falk, Arkansas, as we've talked here on the show at various times, the Boggy Creek Monster, the museum there. And we were so tired, I couldn't even get myself to drive out of the way for 15 minutes to stop by there after having been on the road so long.
Yeah, well, I hope you find some other adventures as you go. But again, as you talk about, there's so much driving that happens, and you'll be able to get some downtime as well.
Yeah, next time we go to Houston, definitely going to have to take time to stop. But we were trying to get back, and I had another trip. I had to go to the other side of Tennessee yesterday. So life's good, but a lot of time in the truck.
Well, we're glad you're here with us. We're glad that you're able to spend some time answering questions. And if this is your first time here, or if you are watching on replay for your first time, we come on and ask Dave a variety of questions. We ask him all sorts of retirement questions, anything from Medicare, Social Security, reverse mortgage, long term care, self directed plans. Dave, I feel like we get to just go on and on and on.
Some days it's that way. It seems like we answer questions about everything, but if we can help people, that's what we're here for.
So all these questions come into us through our webinars, through our websites, through email, so many different areas they come in, even through social media. So if you need something or if you have a question, please go ahead to our website and submit that at retirementriskadvisors.com. Or again, you can find us on social media and send us a PM or a DM there, and we'll be able to get that on one of our future shows. Well, Dave, enough talking from me. Let's jump on and see if we can get some of these questions to you.
Okay.
All right, let's get my first one here. My first one is from Eva and Scott. How can we best avoid scams in retirement?
I'm glad you asked this question because this is something that's happening far more now than it used to. It's an area that we're seeing far more abuse in. We call it elder abuse, where individuals in their retirement years are getting taken advantage of financially because of these various scams that are out there. The first thing I will tell anyone is to establish a plan. As long as you've got a good plan, what we find is we often don't go looking for things that we shouldn't be looking at. Many times in our own lives, we got a structure and a plan of what we're going to do with our time. We can usually stay out of trouble and going down paths that we shouldn't be going down. Same things happens in our retirement. The other is you want to keep up on the scams that are out there. A good place is AARP if you're in retirement, which based on your ages, you're at that point. I would get connected with AARP and see what the current scams are and just be very careful. Anytime anyone's asking for information, they've got a get rich quick scheme, anything with a family member that just seems out of place. So you got to be very careful when these things happen and make sure you do your homework before you go down those roads.
Dave, since the pandemic, have you seen these scams, especially to the older generation? Do you see this happening more frequent?
Yeah, they're skyrocketing and they're going up because we've got so many people now that are lonely because they've lost family members. We've got so many people isolated. Got a situation there for a year and a half that many people that weren't able to even see their family. And they were used to going out, socializing, being around other people. And now they're all of a sudden locked in. The only people that they're willing to socialize with them many times are people that don't have their best interest at heart. And it's creating a major issue for many retirees.
Dave, I was watching YouTube and there's a guy I love to watch. He does this glitter bomb where he sends people who steal Amazon packages. He replaces those with a package that basically when you open up it explodes and shoots glitter everywhere. And one of his videos, he was getting after these big places in India that were doing elder scams, where they call on the phone and try to convince them that they've done something wrong. And he was sending packages to their locations and trying to get them to just disrupt what they were doing. But I really, it pulled my heartstrings a lot because, like you said, we talk about this a lot, but we just don't see a lot of action being taken. And even for ourselves, we just don't establish that base where we say, okay, how, do I need to have support systems? Who do I talk to? Because if somebody calls me and says, hey, we need you to log into the computer or click on this link, I think a lot of us just are too afraid to ask questions, or we're not getting the right help we need.
Yeah, and many times it's even because we have a good heart that people want to help other people. They want to believe that they can give to other people that are in need. But sometimes that gets us in trouble because that's what they're pulling at is those emotions and our willingness to give money to someone that's reaching out saying they've got a problem. And when we get into retirement, those things change because we've got to take care of ourselves first. And it's a very Christian principle. It's a good life principle. Take care of yourself and then you take care of others. We talk about it with airplanes. We don't put the mask on everybody else first. We put the mask on ourselves, and then we take care of our kids and whoever else may be with us so we can take care of. And it's that way in life. Far too many times we sacrifice our own health, wealth, and well-being to be able to somehow try to think we're helping someone else, and it's just not what should be happening.
Very well said. Well, Dave, we're going to go ahead and continue to move on. And I do want to remind those that are here with us live, if you do have questions, go ahead and put that in the comment section. And we will do our best to, if we can squeeze those in. Some of the other questions we already had preloaded here that came in during the week. And again, if we don't get to your questions, we'll for sure add it for a future show. All right, Dave, my next one I have here is from Katie. Katie, it looks like she is a CPA. And if I had an extra $50 monthly to save for retirement, where should I put it?
Yeah, great question. As you look at it, I don't know enough information about you to fully answer the question for you individually, but I'm going to do my best to answer it overall. The first place that I would put any money that I have available for retirement is in my employer based plan up to the match. So if you're not already putting enough money into your 401k, 403b, 457 to reach the match from your employer, we want that free money. So that's number one of where I'm going. Now, number two could be in our savings account, getting things set up so we have an emergency fund. Could be education. Maybe you should be taking that money to educate yourself to allow you to either become better at your job or to so you can make more money, or maybe to become better in your retirement planning so you can make better choices. But a lot of options out there. But number one has always got to be that 401k. And again, for me, it's a Roth. It's not traditional. It's going into that Roth account so I can take tax risk off the table as well.
Dave, the reason I really love this question from Katie is because we look at, she is actively saying, what can I do? She doesn't have a lot of money right now, so she can put an extra $50 a month to save for retirement. That tells me that she's willing to put some effort out there and trying to get toward retirement, versus a lot of us talk about it, Dave, or we get educated on it, but we don't ever do anything.
You're exactly right. And we've got to start somewhere, and every little bit adds up. We all started with something, and many of us, it was very little. And then over time, we were able to build that up. But as we look at it, and don't take out of the importance, don't remove the importance of education and gaining skills. Maybe even in this situation, maybe it's a side hustle. Now, I want people to be very careful that you're not putting money into businesses that you can't make any money off of. But again, I've seen lately, and not trying to promote any company here, but you look at Rover. I'm seeing the amount of money people are paying to have their dogs watched. Now, if you had to pay some upfront money to be able to get your house in a situation to where you could do that, maybe the best money you spent for the return on your investment if you just got free time and love dogs. It could be a great opportunity for you to make some good side money that you otherwise wouldn't have had, or maybe with your home. Maybe you got to make some adjustments to allow for an Airbnb to happen. Maybe the best money you ever spend.
So, Dave, what do we do if we're getting extra money? What's the best place to put that? Again, you've kind of answered this for Katie. It's like, hey, look at these different funds, but is a lot of that going so we can just spend it and have more things?
No, no, the best thing, I mean, if you take this, again, we turned $50. And again, I'm not saying which side hustle it is, but let's say you have a side hustle that you need to get licenses and stuff. And for 6 months, you take that money, you buy those type of licenses, whatever it is that you need. And then all of a sudden you're making $300 extra a month. You put that into retirement. Now we're talking, so we look over a year, we're getting $3,600 a year into there instead of 600. And then maybe you take some of that money and invest in something else. So it's all about just taking our money, investing it, and then reinvesting that gets us where we need to be. If you're pulling that profit off every month and you're just going to continue to invest $50 for the rest of your life, sorry, you're never going to get to where you need to be able to have the money you need in excess of your Social Security to have the lifestyle you're living.
And I think that's such wise advice. And again, The point here is just get started, do something.
Yeah, and one of the other things, CR, I'll just mention is better use your time. We have a ton of time. TV is not paying you anything. If you're sitting down at nights, and I realize we get tired, and I realize we want to do something brainless, you're sitting down there for 3 or 4 hours at night, and you're not making enough money in your job or other things to be able to save for retirement, take care of yourself. Use that time more wisely. Maybe it's a part-time job. Maybe again a side hustle, something else that you can do. Maybe it's educating yourself to be able to do something different in your life. All of those things are going to provide a much better return than whatever TV provides, besides just cheap entertainment.
Yeah, yep, I totally agree. Well, Dave, I have my next question loaded here from Alan. Could I set up an annuity to help cover healthcare costs?
Absolutely. When you look at it, annuities can be set up to cover any costs. They're really a guaranteed stream of, if you do it right, inflation adjusted and even tax free income potentially, depending on how you structure those. That many people will set together a number of annuities and then annuitize them at various times in their retirement. Maybe a situation where you're saying, look, I've got healthcare costs I'm going to be paying on a monthly basis. I want an annuity to be able to cover that so I don't have to adjust my other budget. So a lot of things can be done there to allow you to have various streams of income using those annuities.
Dave, how much do we really need set aside to be able to cover healthcare costs once we get to retirement?
Average male is going to spend about 150,000, average female 135,000 during their retirement on medical costs, and that's going to go up based upon the inflation adjustments that are not only happening across the country, but because of medical costs going up so much faster. So it's a big chunk, CR, when we look at it. Now, if you take a 20 or 30-year retirement and divide that number into it, you're not going to probably break someone, but still it's a large chunk of your monthly budget.
And I think that's the one thing is we always need to have that end in mind as as where we are right now. I think that's the one thing is a lot of times we just don't focus on that. We're taking care of our immediate needs, but we're not looking at these. And I love this question because as we're looking at how to cover healthcare costs, it's like you said, it's rapidly changing.
It is. And again, once you add it up and you divide it into a monthly payment, I mean, it could be 4, 5, 6, $700 or more that you're paying. It and taxes will probably be your largest bills, assuming that you paid off all your debt. What you're probably going to find is medical costs and taxes are going to be your largest bills going into retirement.
Hmm. Well, Dave, with that, I do want to bring up a next question here from it looks like it's from Cynthia. Why are elders commonly targeted for financial exploitation?
Great question, Cynthia. And there's a number of reasons for this. Number one is they have the most assets. When you look across the country, the elderly people have been the ones that have saved their whole lives to amass a bunch of assets. So they look at it and say, where are the most assets available? Number two, they get to a point that oftentimes they don't know the information they should to be able to make the right choices, whether it's that they've lost their cognitive ability, whether it's a spouse that's now been widowed that was not the financial person in the family. So now they're getting misled into items that if they had their spouse alive still, that wouldn't have happened. So they just see them as an easy target, saying there a lot of naivety setting in here. You got a lot of retirees that haven't saved enough. So you got the one side, there's so much money. You got the other side, there's not enough money. So you're going to have two types of scam. One where they're going to try to siphon off everything you have. The other one's going to say, let's take what little bit you have and we're going to make you a bunch more. And the reality of it, that's not going to happen either.
Dave, where do most of these come from? Are they coming from people on the phone? They come from family? Where do we see most of these challenges?
You would think, looking at the news, that they're all coming from overseas, and there are a number of them coming from overseas. We look at Jamaica, you talk about India, a lot of different places where we've got a lot of scams that are going on right now. We've all gotten emails or phone calls on the various scams that are out there. But the reality of it is it's family members. They're the largest abusers of the elderly family members that are there, I guess, since they are family that we have.
And with that, Dave, one of the things I want to do is talk about is we need to be able to have family around as we talk about all of these things. And so, how do we know what information we share and we don't share? Because again, we want to help protect our parents and our friends and whatnot.
Yeah, we've got to do it as a larger family group. I think that's one of the issues. And I saw this back early in my career. Now, this individual had the money that it was not a problem, but she was single. She actually Joe DiMaggio's aunt. So I won't reveal her name, but she was Joe DiMaggio's aunt. She had done very well in Las Vegas for decades. And every time a family member came in, they would convince her to go to the casinos and blow like $10,000. And you looked at this and you're going, wait a second, why are you doing this? Well, she didn't want to, ruin the relationship. She wanted them to keep visiting, and she was in a financial situation where she could be able to do that. But most of us aren't in that situation. And yet we sit there and we think, oh, they're asking to go do this. They want a good time. They're showing it that it's my responsibility. Maybe during the working years, it was. Maybe you were one who paid for a night out on the town. Maybe it wasn't 10 grand, it was 2 grand, or whatever the case may be. But we're allowing people to, get us separated, and then that's causing the problem. So what we've got to do is look at it as a bigger family group of saying, if you've got, brothers and sisters, there are multiple children, keeping them involved, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, whatever the case may be, try to make sure as many are involved as possible.
It's such great advice, and I think we need to be able to enlarge that family conversation. I really appreciate that, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's being open. I mean, that's the other thing. We don't talk enough about it. That's one of the things. We keep our finances too close to our heart, and many times that can be a good thing, but we just don't talk enough about it as we get into our elderly years and some of the struggles and issues that we have.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, Dave, I've got Toby on next. Should I downsize if my home is paid off?
Toby, I don't know your situation, but I'll tell you, if you're looking to save money, it may be an option out there, and it not necessarily even because it's paid off. Maybe in a situation where you've got a large mortgage on a very big home, that it may make sense to sell that home, get out of it, and get into something smaller. Now, there's a number of things you've got to look at going into retirement from a home standpoint. Number one is it going to be accessible to the things in the area that you're going to need? You're going to have your doctors that you can get to fairly easy, maybe even public transportation for a point that you're not able to go out and drive yourself. What area is that going to be? And then what's the house look like? It doesn't make sense to go from a 5,000 square foot 2-story home, maybe into a 2,000 square foot 2-story home that's still 2-story, that you're still going to have issues if you get to a point you can't go up and down those stairs. So I think, again, you just got to look at your finances and then take into consideration all these other factors. What does that look like? What does the maintenance cost look like? Am I getting into a home that's cheaper and less value, but yet now I'm in an HOA, I've got a bunch of other costs I'm going to have to pay that I didn't have to before, and now it's costing me the same amount every month.
And Dave, if we look at this, does it matter where we live, meaning in certain states? Are there things we always need to look at as we're getting into retirement or selling our home or other assets?
It definitely does. In fact, I got reached out to probably a month ago, maybe now. I don't know. It's been recently, where someone wanted me to do a webinar for them on which state to move into in retirement, saying, look, are you able to do this for us? We'd really like you to put it together. We want 90 minutes talking about the various states and the laws governing those. And I just didn't have the time right now. And you know that with everything we've got going on, but it makes a big difference. I mean, if you're living in an area where you don't have a state tax, that could be anywhere from 1, 2 to 10 or 13%, depending on what your income level is that you're going to save. If you live in a city that's got public transportation, maybe much easier for you to get around than having a car and paying for insurance and all those things. So SCR makes a huge difference. Family members make a difference, something we need to spend more time focusing on as we get into those retirement years.
Dave, and I think that is such great advice. I mean, I had my daughter move from Nashville to Chicago, right downtown, and she said, "Dad, I need my car." And I said, "You're in the city, you don't need a car." And she fought me and said, "Yes, I need a car." She moved up there after a month, called me and said, "Dad, I don't need my car. You need to sell my car." So I love that advice, and I think that's something we have to continually look at is like you said, are we close to things? Are we able to get into public transportation or whatnot? Just make sure that we're planning ahead. I think that's the one thing we're trying to really illustrate with this is it's not just on a whim. Even retirement, it has to be planned out.
And there's so many things, CR, when we look at it from an overall cost standpoint, we don't have to have it. You get into retirement if you don't go out that much. Maybe you live in a over 55 community, so you've got a lot of resources there. You can go out at various times to activities through the group that's been put together there. You may not need a car there. If you're only going out maybe once a week to buy groceries, it may be far cheaper for you to get a cab or Uber, go get the groceries, do whatever you need to, and then come back than owning a car, paying for the car payment, insurance, gas, any repairs and maintenance. I mean, the list goes on and on. that we end up having to pay for. So many things we can do. And unfortunately, society tells us that owning everything is the American way. And that many times even our friends and neighbors push us into owning things that we think we should own that we don't need to. We've just got to get out of that. We need to focus on ourselves. Can
Mhm.
I afford these things? Is this going to be the best for me? And forget about what everybody else thinks about it.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice as we look at I look at just getting stuff too. Do I need this? Do I want this? Those are things we need to look at because every little purchase we make now is holding us back from things we can do for our retirement.
And we've got to look at the things that we invest money in. There are things too that you're going to spend a little bit more for something that's going to last a lot longer.
Mhm.
We just experienced that with our daughter. We helped one of our daughters move down to Houston, and there were some things that we helped her get that she wouldn't have been able to afford as someone who's just getting into a home. But I knew from years and years of experience in being a homeowner that there's certain things you don't want to scrimp on.
Yeah.
And we're going to spend the money because long term, it's going to save you a lot of money if we end up spending this additional money. So, again, just so many choices have to be done. But the biggest thing is be happy with your choices, make them yourself, do what you want to do for your retirement, but make sure that, too, if things go south, you got to own it, too. If you make some bad decisions, fortunately, that's on you if you didn't do your homework and get the education you needed.
Yes, I agree. Dave, let's get down to Zane's question. How has the global COVID pandemic impacted retirement planning nowadays?
Yeah, great question. When we look at it, there's a lot of issues that have changed here. One of the biggest, obviously, is the inflation that's happening. If you look at it, the pandemic created a huge spurge of or surge, sorry, huge surge of spending where we went through trillions of dollars that now we're trying to pay for through higher inflation. That's going to be higher interest rates. So all of that's just going to cause us to run out of money sooner. See, Art, again, what's the biggest problem America has right now? They're running out of money in retirement. We've got to get this fixed. And the COVID pandemic just made it worse for everyone across the board.
Dave, and as we see more and more people in this getting through this pandemic, as we're starting to see higher inflation, what advice do you have? Because I feel like a lot of times right now, when inflation hits, we're out there still trying to buy these massive purchases. We're still there trying to keep up with exactly what we've been doing for the last couple of years. But are you kind of saying, wait a minute, hold off, and let's look at some other options?
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest recommendation I can make for anyone is you need to go to our Getting Safely Through Retirement class if you've not done so. Two of the best hours of your life you will ever spend on retirement. And I can tell you that because we've taught thousands of people and they keep coming back and telling us, excuse me, that's been a great experience for them. We want you to go through and get the education you need so you can deal with these risks. They're not going away, they're getting worse. More retirees are running out of money than they ever have before. We've got this eternal problem that doesn't seem to end. And we've got a solution through that webinar to help you feel more confident, secure, and happy with the retirement that you're heading into.
And Dave, I've got that little piece to pop up here. So this is the Getting Safely Through Retirement. This is something that you can get signed up for through our website. If you go to retirementriskadvisors.com and you can go over to our events page and you can see all the different opportunities we have for the webinar coming up. So I just wanted to pull this up as you brought that up there, Dave, so we could talk about it.
Absolutely. It is our flagship presentation. It's something that I've been very passionate about now for years, that there was risks out there that people were not addressing. And we could do it in an environment to provide the steps and the solutions that people needed to be able to get more comfortable with what they were looking at for retirement, to really get them safely through so they could better understand what retirement would look like.
And Dave, as we look at this 2 hour presentation, the main focus as we look through this is obviously we're trying to help educate, but we're trying to help people take action too. Because one thing is to say, hey, I love the education. Thanks for giving me that. But another thing is saying, okay, I'm tired of living the way I am. I'm going to make some changes.
You're right, CR. And when we look at it, we all have a number, whatever that is, and it's our age. There's going to be an age we're all going to run out of money. Well, is that going to happen before we run out of life? What we're finding is over 50% of retirees, that's the case. They're running out of money before they're running out of life. And that's not only because as we look at it and say, hey, if everything stays normal, we haven't saved enough, but many people are getting faced with risks that are causing them to run out of money. I mentioned before in some of my webinars about my wife's grandmother who's been healthy as a horse. Well, guess what? Now she's in her late 90s. She's starting to have mental issues. She is probably going to die broke, CR. When you look at it, she had a house, she had, all these various things. She's going to probably end up having to go into a Medicaid facility, and she's going to have to spend down all those assets. So here was a person that, yeah, got to a certain point, but she doesn't have the assets to go where she needs to go. And it's not just at end of life. We're seeing it with people with the market. The market just, has dropped 20% this year. Got people that now those assets are not going to last as long because they're pulling money out. And if that happens again next year, going to have further issues. It's just a lot of things going on people are not planning for.
And Dave, I think as it was really kind of reveal the secrets about retirement, it's just making sure you put a plan in action and act on it. And I think that's the one thing. There's not a secret sauce to make all of this work, but really it's just about making sure you're prepared and you're doing something about it.
And the great thing about that course here, it goes through the 10 risks, financial risks that people need to know about. So you understand the basics of them. You then understand the strategies that you need to do to take action. And then you get an opportunity to be able to put that in place. Find out your number. What age am I going to run out of money if everything goes as planned? What age do I run out of money if I have some of these road bumps that we're all going to have? That I have some of these. When do I run out? And what strategies can I use to make that last longer? I mean, I don't know anybody going into retirement that doesn't want their money to last as long as possible. And again, I would much rather be in a situation where I live to have money that lasts to 100, and I died at 62, than have money that lasts till 62, and I live to 100. It's like that's a miserable existence if I had to wait another 38 years without enough money.
And again, you can find this at retirementriskadvisors.com and go on the events page, and you can find the Getting Safely Through webinar, obviously, that we have there, and you can get signed up for it. Well, Dave, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to see if I can get through one or two more questions here. This one here is from Mo. This last month, my employer offered a small life insurance policy as part of our benefits. If I already have one, should I enroll in my employer-sponsored one too?
A couple of things here I don't know that I would love to ask you in regards to this is, one, is there any cost to it? If there's not, I'd say absolutely get signed up. And number two, what's that other policy you have based upon, and what do you plan to do with it? I will tell you, chances of you getting any benefits off of a term employer-based policy, especially going into your 60s, knowing you'll retire in the next few years, very small that you're ever going to get any benefits. So I'm not a huge fan of buying a bunch of term insurance at that time. But if you're underinsured, you feel like there's a need that needs to be covered until you can get into retirement, maybe a cheap option to do it through the employer versus yourself, because they will group rate it. So you're going to pay less than if you tried to do it yourself. But again, I want people to try to stay away from term policies as you get to this age, because they're going to lapse before you ever get any benefits out of them.
I was just going to bring that up, Dave. Do we need to get into some type of term or avoid that? Because again, we'll be paying on that forever and ever and ever. And I think that's what you're trying to illustrate there.
Yeah. And again, these employer plans are great for those who are unhealthy. I mean, this is the problem too. Now, again, you're getting to an age that based on the rating, you may be all right, but they're taking a pool of people and saying, okay, we're going to take the healthy, the unhealthy, and we're going to insure everyone. Well, that means that the unhealthy are getting it cheaper. The healthy are paying far more than they would have otherwise. So that's part of the thing we've got to look at with employer-based benefits as well. Which side of the spectrum do we fall on? If we're the unhealthy, yeah, this may be a great option to get into something like this, that they'll allow us to get some insurance we couldn't get on our own. If you're the healthy person, probably going to pay another 20, 30, maybe even 50% more than you'd have to pay if you went out and got it on open market.
Definitely things for Mo to look out there. Dave, let's see. I'm going to try to squeeze in one more here just as we're coming to our 30-minute mark. This is from Randy. Recently widowed at 55. My client wants to begin retirement planning, so everything is squared away. Should they pass unexpectedly too? Could they invest in Social Security survivor benefits?
So I'm not 100% sure what Randy's trying to ask right here, because when we look at it, Social Security survivor benefits are going to be available at age 60 if they end up with here they've got a spouse that has passed away, which ironically, are something that we talk about in our webinars that many people don't realize. Over 75% of women, and I don't know if this is a woman or a man, but 75% of women are going to be widowed by the time they pass away. And the average age is 57. So here we see at 55, and I look at my sister, she was much younger than her husband. She's 53, seeing a lot of individuals getting widowed in their late 50s here. So there would be some benefits there, but again, you're not going to be able to get access to those unless you've got a young kid in the home that's under age 16. You will not get access to those until you turn 60. And I'm not sure you really want to take them then. I would recommend some planning to see if it wouldn't be better for you to wait till a later age based upon what's available in your spending needs.
And Dave, that's what I was going to recommend, because it also said that they want to begin retirement planning. And I think that's going to be the first step that I would even recommend for this as well, because again, there's so many different variables here. I think that's a very wise choice.
And one thing I will say, if for some reason they are getting some benefits, yeah, you can do whatever you want with them. And if it's excess money, then I would suggest to get invested. But you've got issues too. Survivor benefits work like regular benefits. You make too much money, those benefits are going to stop during that period of time that you're working if you haven't reached full retirement age. So fortunately, Randy, a lot of unknown parts in that question that we would definitely want to know to give you the exact advice for your client. But hopefully been able to provide some information that will help as you look at the general rules and guidelines.
And Dave, that is the end of our show. We've came and hit our 30 minutes. So I appreciate your time. I can't believe how fast this goes.
I can't either. It seems like we've been here for like 5 minutes, and here it is, 30 minutes already.
And I want to remind those that didn't get your question answered today, you can always continue to submit those through our website, retirementriskadvisors.com, or you can go on our social media platforms and also submit your questions. And we will get those on future shows. Don't worry, our job is to make sure we get as many questions as we can answered. And if you are still looking for more information and you just felt like, wow, this was a vast of great retirement knowledge, you can always find us more content on our website, where you can find different webinars we do. And you can also find Dave on all of the podcasts he does. And so, Dave, we've just recently passed episode 20, and I think this is on season 3. So you've definitely been changing through and been producing a lot of shows with some great content.
We have, and I've loved our latest shows. Not that I didn't love anything that we've done before, but we've just had some great people bring some great information to allow us to better help you, to help people make better decisions. So I definitely encourage that. One last thing too, I want to tell people: find your number. When are you going to run out of money? You need to figure that out and do planning and see if that your plan's going to work. That's the big number you want to look at. When am I going to run out? What age? And if risks happen, obviously that's going to be sooner. Are you okay with that? Do you feel like you've got a plan that's working if you're going to run out in your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, whatever it may be for you? Got to look at that. And again, realize we live longer than expected. If not, you want to get into our Getting Safely Through class and let us help you get to a situation where you can get to a better retirement.
And again, you can always find all the information at retirementriskadvisors.com and get all that taken care of. Well, Dave, thank you so much for spending your Wednesday with us and answering all of these questions.
You're welcome.
And for all those watching live, thank you so much. And those on replay, again, thank you for being here. It's always great to see such support as we go through and do these shows each week. And we will do our best to see you again next week. Dave, you will not be here next week, but I do have a special guest in replace of you.
No, I will be doing a webinar. So people are going to have to pick a webinar here. I would say come to here and you can get the webinar at some future point.
We definitely have lots of great things coming. So we'll see you guys all again soon.